Hey all, here OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the Aluratek Stream Pro. This is a Wi-Fi enabled smart internet radio player. So it actually is running on Android and has a 7-inch touchscreen, so you're able to do things like playback videos in addition to even communicate because it has a built-in webcam. So if you take a look at the packaging here, it's pretty simple. This one retails for under $200, sometimes on sale for around $150. So the price isn't that bad either, considering these days we're spending upwards of $1,000 on a smartphone, and something like this can bring a lot of utility, whether as an alarm clock, whether for music. Since again you have access to the Google Play Store, technically you can install things like Amazon Alexa and transform it into even a smart speaker if you want to. Packaging here is pretty simple. We just have kind of a warranty card, and then there's a user manual as well that documents how everything should be set up in full color. We also have the AC power brick, and that's pretty much it. So a few observations about the hardware first. 7 inches is actually smaller than what you may expect just because our phones are getting larger and larger. So here's a 6-inch phone with a newer 2:1 aspect ratio. You can tell what it looks like next to this thing. So it doesn't really occupy too much space on a desk. It has a built-in battery as well, which is why the box claims it has 5 hours of battery performance, which is pretty cool. You can charge it up and then you can take it with you, kind of like wireless speakers when traveling. And on the top there's dedicated volume keys, there's a power switch. The entire body of the player is made out of a polycarbonate plastic that feels relatively durable. It doesn't attract too much fingerprints because of the matte surface, and again there's an easy handle on the very top that just makes it quite simple to carry with you when you're traveling and on the go. The back here does feature a line out, so you can technically connect this to a larger home stereo speaker if you want to. Micro USB standard for charging, micro SD for memory expansion, and that's pretty much it. On the back there's just rubber feet that prevents the unit from sliding around on a surface or on a desk. Alright, so first impressions, this is a capacitive IPS display, so that viewing angles do seem to be quite good. You can start tilting it and it seems like the visibility of the colors are still going to be quite natural. Always nice to see. It's not a laminated screen though, so there's still a little bit of a gap between the glass and the screen LCD underneath. Otherwise we can kind of drag down to have access to standard kind of Android controls, and indeed it does seem to be based on Android 5.0 or Android 6.0. So if we tap on settings here and go to about device, we can see it's running on Android 5.1.1. So that is going to be Lollipop. So it's still going to run all the titles that you would want from the Play Store without any problems there. We have virtual controls down below there for navigating home, menu, and for multitasking, but the UI here has been definitely customized by Aluratek to make it more easy to use as kind of an internet radio player. But we can customize these tiles just by long holding on the icon below here. So for instance, I don't think calculator makes a lot of sense on here, so I can change that to maybe YouTube instead, and now it's changed to YouTube. So I have access to browser, photos, so it can be a cloud photo frame, Wi-Fi photo frame, it can play back videos, music, and all those things can be done. I can also press on home again to access basically a regular version of Android, so being very much stock. So it can transition between those two launchers pretty seamlessly. On here you can also take a look at all the apps that are built on in, and for the most part it is rather stock. We do have a few music services built on in, which do make sense because this is a media player at the end of the day. So there is iHeartRadio, we also have access to Pandora, as you can see here, and we also have access to Spotify, in addition to the regular music services from Google. Takeaway is the audio quality is excellent. There's a lot more bass than what I was expecting. It really does pack a huge punch in the lower frequency. So if you're listening to EDM music, you're listening to rock, you can definitely hear it, the bass kind of rumble in the background. Mids and highs also sound, I would say, pretty clean. It may not be crystal clear compared to more expensive speakers on the market, but for just listening to music, streaming music, I'd say it more than suffices. It's a huge upgrade over any speaker that you'll have on a phone or a tablet, packs much more volume, much more impressive depth, and overall fills an entire room without any problems. Now, one thing I did notice, however, is that the Wi-Fi reception is actually a little bit on the weak side. So right now we are pretty close to the router and it's playing back in terms of buffering speed actually pretty quickly, but the Wi-Fi reception does dramatically drop off as the distance increases. So whereas if I'm in another room, I can still have a bit of signal on my phone and it still opens up web pages. On this, it simply won't load at all. So I'm not sure if the internal antenna is just a little bit weak or if it's just perhaps this particular unit. Now, when you are connected to Wi-Fi, it also kind of becomes just a smart speaker because you're able to do voice commands. So you can tap on the kind of voice recognition on the side, and you can ask it questions. For instance, what is the time and date? And you can see that it's going to pop that along without any problems. And if you do sign in with your Google account, you can still do things like OK Google to access those smart commands. So it does have a pretty good microphone built on in, and combined with these speakers, you can just set it onto a desk and it will be able to give you, answers to questions that you may want to search up through the internet. One thing that I didn't really like, however, was that the camera seems to be a little bit finicky. So for instance, the built-in camera app often kind of crashes when you try to load it. But if you try installing something like Skype or WeChat, it will actually recognize it and work without any problems. It's just the built-in kind of native Google camera app for some reason kind of crashes. Now, if we do a quick look at the web browsing, it does come with Chrome built on in, which is pretty capable. But you can see how after a few seconds, the page is loading a little slowly but surely, and everything is still fully legible. The screen resolution is 720p, so it is HD, it's just not full HD, and you can definitely use pinch and zoom gestures for multi-touch, so you're able to kind of pan around. Definitely not the fastest experience, especially if you're used to a flagship level phone by now, but then again, you probably won't be doing too much web browsing on here to begin with. And here's what the alarm clock app looks like. So just pretty much stock Android. You have access to the time and date. You can also set up an alarm very quickly here, and also a stopwatch, as well as a countdown timer. All pretty handy considering the form factor of this, where you can put it onto a kitchen or maybe by a bedside table in your bedroom, and it's able to act as a kind of smart alarm clock. So that's been the Aluratek 7-inch smart internet radio player. I have to say that it does much more than just, be an internet radio streamer. It has this Android interface, which you can use to play back videos, you can play back images, you can even do things like send it to a wireless or smart TV using Miracast. The design is actually very elegant, and again, performance for only $200 is actually quite good. Slight downsides would be maybe the Android system and the internals here aren't as polished or as quick as more expensive options out there, or a dedicated tablet, for instance. But then keeping in mind that what it's primarily aimed at is for music playback, I think that Aluratek did a pretty good job. You can learn more about this unit in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.